Jared, yes, two guests tonight. One's a TV megastar, the other one's a premiership captain. Hello and welcome to On the Couch following round one, part B of the 2014 season. Luke Hodge, the Hawthorn superstar, is our special guest. But let's welcome guests of extraordinary ability themselves. One is Jason Dunstall, an extraordinary ability of survival, Jason. We're looking forward to you getting through the night. You've had a rough weekend. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Jared, and I guarantee you I'm not the TV superstar you were talking about.
No, but you have been.
That narrows it down, Jared.
That's right, Mike. And congratulations to you as well. While Jason was in his deathbed all weekend, you were up in Sydney being celebrated as an award-winning, ASTRA award-winning journalist for your open mic series. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah. Fantastic.
That's easy. Jeez.
Well, take us through it, Mike. Don't get shy now.
How humble was the acceptance speech?
Cut it there. I thought, I'm looking at George Burns at the Oscars there. Was that me, was it?
Well, that was you.
No, it was a big thrill. It was. I'm very proud of Open Mic and the team that I'm part of.
Absolutely.
Going to give anybody a rap?
Pardon?
You going to give Baldy a rap?
Jolly? Yeah, Jolly Starswick. I gave him a rap last week. I'm always happy to talk about him. But there are so many, Jared, I don't want to leave anyone
I got a
out.
text, Mike, at 12:15 from your good self saying I've just been voted the sex symbol of Foxtel.
That went to you, did it?
From you, yeah, your good self. Jason, what took your fancy over the weekend?
For me, the big story of the weekend was the Bombers. They're up and about and look out in 2014.
Mike?
I'm on a signs from out west, Jared. I think the big bird is starting to flex its wings again. You saw it firsthand. I love what I saw. I think the two WA teams will finish top four for the first time since 2006.
I wonder if we could ever get it, Mike, that grand final between the Eagles and the Freo. You're not going to jump off early. For me, it was Thursday night footy. I thought that was absolutely magnificent.
Really?
And to celebrate, you had Jimmy Bartell. James, call me Jimmy Bartell, just put on a display in his 250.
Any other time, Jared, that game draws 5,000 more people.
Possibly, Mike, but if you're going to have an extra night on the fixture, if it's Monday night or it's Thursday night...
Why do we have to have an extra night on the fixture?
That's a good question.
You think Friday, Saturday and Sunday's not enough?
Well, I think Sunday night's no good at all. I think the twilight's fine, but if you're going to push it out, then I think Thursday night is the start of the weekend. I think people deal with it pretty well.
Not for me.
Well, I think Thursday night's certainly better than Monday night as an option.
Yeah, I wouldn't go either. But anyway, that's a philosophical debate.
Well, let's look at some of the negatives. And the biggest negative for me, and it was bordering on a disaster for the Kangaroos, was their inept loss. And on the back of it, there's almost been a kangaroo colourhood. Dermot Brereton suggesting that Nick Del Santo should be considered to be dropped. I think Nathan Brown said Jack Zeeble needed to be dropped. The kangaroo colour is going to go on until they produce a really competitive performance against the Dogs this weekend.
Jason, I reckon we were all gullible on North.
Yep.
We all picked them to win. I think the Herald Sun poll was 26-3. Essendon won 4 more games than North last year.
Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. It was poor. It was absolutely poor. But they probably cannot wait until next week to have a chance to atone, because that was just, well, I don't think anyone expected that, did you?
But in making an atonement, you don't do it against the Bulldogs. I mean, you've got to do it against a side that you are competing with for a spot in the 8. And this is the issue about hype or hype. There's been so much hype, and not all of it's coming out of North Melbourne. In fact, most of it's not. But the expectations are so high, they need to address it against the top 6 side.
Well, it's fine to say that, but the Bulldogs are the first ones they get a crack at.
That's true.
So they've got to put them away and then build on it.
But, Jace, there's no excuse for any sort of complacency with North. They won 3 games in 10 games against the finalists last year. And Essendon jumped them, 24 points to 0. They caught up and then they got beaten again. So I don't think there's anything mitigating for North from last Friday night.
It's a pretty damning performance, wasn't it?
Let me pinch one of your phrases. Brad Scott, he certainly didn't sugarcoat it.
I can't think of a time ever in my time that we've been beaten by almost 50 in contested possession. And that's just so unlike the group we've got. If you can't win the ball and you can't defend well enough to get it back, I don't care what you can do with the ball in your hands. You won't play for us. And it's as simple as that.
He has got limited possibilities, though, in talking the tough words, read the acts. There aren't that many great players who weren't there on the weekend that he can swing around if he's prepared to act.
But does he not now be seen to be as strong as he was with his words after the game? Doesn't someone have to pay the price?
Well, I don't necessarily think so. I don't think you have to react so abrasively after 1 week. I think you can put some bold statements out there, but it's going to be about the performance this week. I think they're probably in a little bit of trouble as far as I'm concerned. I didn't quite have them as high as everyone else did pre-season, but where everyone else had them, they're a long way off that mark. And if they don't make some statements very, very quickly, it's going to be a pretty ordinary year.
So Jared mentioned that a couple of big names have said that Brownie wanted Jack Zeeble dropped, and Dermott said that he would drop Nick Del Santo. That would be a massive statement.
He's played 1 game for the club.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought you're going to drop him after 1 game. He's got to get an opportunity to redeem himself. I think everyone deserves a second chance. If there were repeated performances like that, absolutely. Drop some big names, but not after 1 week.
The players would have been going through the tape, and we'll have a look at a couple of issues as well. There was one moment that we looked at on Friday night where the loose ball went up and they had the numbers around the ball. This was quite magnificent. We'll count the numbers shortly, but the Bombers, you see, take it away and launch another shot at goal. Let's take a look at it again and count the numbers. There's around 10 to 3 against the Bombers, and they somehow conspire to allow Essendon to take that ball away.
Well, I think lack of accountability was one of the biggest issues that I noticed straight away, and also the fact that the pressure was poor. I thought they just allowed Essendon to control the footy, and that played right into Essendon's hands. Yeah,
there were plenty of examples, and they'll be going across the board. But here's a couple. There was a couple of really poor chases. There was a couple of really poor attempts at smothering the ball. Have a look at this one as a feeble attempt at a smother. I mean, that ends up going down to Joe Dano, who takes a mark running with the flight of the ball. Here's another one. Young Mullet's 10 years younger than Chappie, and yet he can't get him. And have a look at this.
This is the one I want to hear, Joe. This is the changed Brendan Goddard. He's matched up there against Jack Zeeble. He gets the ball clear from that congestion there, Jason. Then he sprints up the ground. There's a kick from Zaharakis goes forward. Who's there to present himself unattended as Goddard? He's at 50 and he kicks the goal.
Well, I think what probably would embarrass Jack the most is that he got beaten in his own game first and foremost. That's the stoppage, the clearance, the inside ball, which perhaps Brendan Goddard hasn't been renowned for over the journey. But then the run and spread, I mean, they torched North all night on that, didn't they?
We spoke in the opening show of the year about the B-grade brigade. And some of them may not even be at that level. Sean Attlee's one that we speak about often as having the potential to get to A, and yet his kicking efficiency isn't up to speed at the moment.
No one knows their players better than their own club, and the North people have been really bullish about Attlee. They think he was ready to actually stamp himself as an elite player in the competition. Now, we've only had the 1 game, but he's got some work to do on his game, hasn't he?
He got on the end of a couple of chains, and he was the last kick going inside 50. And there were loose players around, and he kicked it directly to the opposition. Now, again, he's going to be one of a number of players, in fact, most of them, that are going to look at a tape and probably cringe when they see some of the things that unfolded.
Just one final one, and this stoppages, and it'll lead us into talking about the star of the night, or one of the stars in Joe Watson. But Ryan Bastanak here, he's getting poleaxed by Essendon. It's in the Essendon forward line. It's a stoppage. He's a young player coming through. Goddard has got a big reputation. The same with Watson. You see there, he's still giving him 3 or 4 metres. This one doesn't cost them. The first one cost them a goal to Brendan Goddard. There's just little things that all of those midfielders who are trying to elevate their status in the game have to address.
Who played on Joe Watson, Jason?
It's a very good question, Michael.
The layman is always afraid to ask that because everyone sort of says they don't know because they've never played. I want to read you a quote from a dual premiership coach by the name of Mark Thompson on after the game and again on Saturday. We don't know who's on who in the midfield. Now, how can that happen when Watson's doing the damage he did in the first half on Friday night?
Well, I think the first and foremost point out of all that is if you're sitting at home and you watch games and you're not quite sure who's on who, don't panic, because quite often a lot of people don't know that are inside what's happening on with the games. But in the midfield, you cross over so much. Here's a selection of the opponents that were on Joe Watson according to champion data. Now, we thought, watching it firsthand, that Del Santo and Zeeble were the two that tended to be there most of the time. There's quite a few that had it. At different stages, there'd be someone else standing next to Watson at stoppage. But most of the time, he was on his own, Jerry.
Yeah, we saw a couple there with Ryan Bastanak, so there's a lot of people going under the radar under others.
I watched the first half again today. Del Santo and Zeeble were my two, but he was able to amble around Watson, and he was the go-to bloke several times. But I can't understand how that can happen.
It was almost Zeeble and Del Santo against Watson and Goddard.
Yep.
And
Well,
two
yeah.
came out with sore feet from getting that many kicks.
I heard John Throw discussing with Lee Matthews the level that Job has got to now in comparison to his heralded father.
Yeah, well, Tim was a star,
Yep.
an all-time Essendon great. They played different games, but I reckon you can now say that Job ranks with his father in his contribution to Essendon.
He's had an
Come on, one of
amazing...
you. Come on.
he's
Well,
had an
it
amazing
mightn't
3
be
or
as
4 years.
dynamic, but
No.
it certainly is effective.
Yeah,
Absolutely is.
So you've got him equal?
I have.
Okay, that's the first time you've ever had an equal. You always say you've got to have 1 or 2, but I'll let you get away with that. The issue with Goldstein obviously impacted on them, and it probably says to me they need to go in with an extra ruck. I know you've got Drew Petrie, who was sadly out of form.
He was.
But when you've got Curry and you've got Mad Jack Daw, maybe you've got to make the choice.
Brad Scott has been adamant, hasn't he, that he's happy to go with Goldstein. He played him
Yep.
one out last year, but he got injured early. This is late in the first quarter, and he's injured his left shoulder. Now, I think he's a left-hander, but regardless of that, he became a one-hander after this. He came off for a while for a bit of treatment, then went back on, and he was clearly winged. We're seeing, like, the West Coast and Geelong going in with 2 big blokes, or 3 in case of the West Coast.
Yeah, like-
Do North have to have someone in their 22 that can ruck if Goldstein's out of form, injured or tired?
Yeah, it's a tough decision because if you put an extra big man in, you're sacrificing some run. You're sacrificing some flexibility.
That's if they can't run.
That's if they can't run,
Because
correct.
you
Which,
can't argue
which is a
that
little
on
bit
the West
different to
Coast.
West Coast Eagles. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But we're just
But it's
talking
not
about
different
it
to Geelong.
in theory. But if you look at Geelong, one of the 3 talls was a sub, which again in itself is a very interesting decision because that doesn't normally happen either. But I think these days we've got some ruckmen that are good for rucking 90% of the game, so you're just looking for someone to give them a chop out, and that gives you the ability to play more running types. And I think they're probably more effective generally than a second big man.
Maybe Brad's problem is that both Curry and Mad Jack Daw haven't done enough in the pre-season to force their way in.
Yeah, although I keep hearing good things about Curry. You were talking Curry 15 months ago as making an impression there.
Well, I think he was in outstanding form 12 months ago, but I'm not sure he's in that form. In fact, I am sure, Mike, he's not in that form right now. He's got to address that situation. All the talk over the weekend was, of course, Bombers off the field and on the field. Let's address off the field at the present time, Mike. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is, according to Johnny Pirrick's report on the Age website, that Tanya Hurd will be, quote, hauled before the Essendon Committee on Wednesday in search of an assurance from her that she'll no longer say anything about the James Hurd situation. Now, I find that highly unusual, and I'm not sure they got the right to do that, have they?
Yeah. Would she go if she was asked?
Well, she's got plenty to say, Tanya. I think she'd back herself in front of them, but do you think that they're entitled to do that?
Well, I think they're entitled to do it, but I don't think Tanya necessarily has to go.
Do you think
they've got a contract with James, and
Correct.
I think they thought it was an all-encompassing contract that we need you to just sit on whatever bitterness you've got there. We need you to sit on it. And I think that's an unfortunate situation because, to me, James is desperate to have his say. And
Yep.
whilst he may have taken a check not to say it, I think that was the wrong move. I think he needs to get it off his chest,
Yeah,
and I'd love to hear it.
I don't think that they should go via Tanya. I think they should say to Hurdy, we want you to coach, you're appointed coach, but you have to tell Tanya that she can't make any more public utterances about this situation.
Oh, it'd be naive to think, though, that James and Tanya haven't spoken.
Of course.
So, is he happy for that to happen?
Well, I'm with you. It'd be naive to think that she acted unilaterally.
Is it, are you of the same view as a large majority of people, Jason, that his situation has become untenable?
Yeah, look, I probably am, Jared, but again, we're sitting outside looking in, so we're not privy to all the facts. But we speak about one player or one person becoming bigger than the club, and unfortunately this whole saga is contrived to perhaps place James in that position. And I'm just hearing from a number of people that, you know, that are Essendon people, that perhaps the time might be right to not go back down that track. Now, if you speak to a lot of supporters, they'll tell you they want James back. They desperately want him back. So
But
I'm as interested in this whole soap opera as everyone else is.
The broader public, according to the Herald Sun poll of 12,000 people, said that 75% thought that Hurdy should be sacked. Does that surprise you or not?
No, it doesn't surprise me, but most of those will be non-Essendon people.
Neutral people.
Correct. You take a poll of Essendon people and completely flip those numbers around.
It's amazing, though, how quickly these things can move on. It's had a big spike in attention 2 or 3 weeks down the track. If everything calms down, I think James Hurd will be back coaching, and I think...
Well, they're committed to him.
Well, they are committed
Yeah.
if they get James.
No ifs, Jared. They are committed to Hurdy as coach for 15 and 16.
I don't think
and
they-
he's done nothing wrong to jeopardise the contract.
That's right.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a major meeting on Wednesday to try
do
and
what?
clarify it.
What, to try to convince him to tell Tanya?
Well, I think
to
that's
button it up.
Isn't that what this is all about?
Well, it seems so, but
Okay.
but I don't think he's done anything to void the contract.
No,
Yeah?
I don't. And I think he's going to end up coaching, Mike. And to me, he'll be a much better coach if he finally has his say. Let's deal with what's happening inside the boundary line.
Inside the boundary line, well, the thing I like about what Essendon did, apart from their general performance, I love the fact that Bomber Thompson said to Brendan Goddard, you're going to play midfield forward. You're not going to play at half-back
Yep.
and get the easy kicks.
Yep.
They've lost a lot of goal-kicking power between seasons, the Bombers. Blokes have left, retired, or been
Crammery.
moved back like Hurley. Goddard went forward and kicked 3. Watson kicked 2. So the midfielders are going to have to do more of that. But he's issued the challenge to probably the most talented bloke in the team, and Goddard rose to it.
Yeah, he
and
did.
Bomber said that he will stay. Bomber said that he will stay forward in midfield. Now, there's the graphic from 2013. He had 16% of his time in defence, 64 in the midfield, 20 forward. Previous year...
big difference is in the defensive
previous year,
50s.
correct. There's 4% back. Is that the right way around? No, this year is 4%
4%
back.
that's right.
74% in the midfield and 22% forward.
So more time in the midfield, a little bit more time forward, where he can be more damaging.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
like that. And it's paid dividends in week 1,
and
hasn't it?
Bomber says he's going to stick to that. That's the deal now, that this player plays where he can do more damage.
Bomber says, and this is what he did say.
Who are good players. When they play behind the ball, they goal keep, and then when they play in front of the ball, they actually have to go and get it. Like it just doesn't come to them. Some players are suited forward. Like he's probably got both. I think he plays his best when he goes forward, and it's more important for the team.
That grand final that Goddard played for St Kilda, the 2 grand finals, the draw and the replay, he was playing both ends of the ground then. He was almost the best player in the game then. But he didn't go on with it the
No,
following
that's right,
year.
that's right.
Yeah.
But maybe he's going to rediscover that form now in the role that Bomber's using him at Essendon.
Your list on the Bombers?
Well, if you take a close look at this list, I think it's at least a top 6 list, if not a top 4 list. Now, talking about quality, and these are the numbers from the weekend, which just reaffirm how good they are at winning possessions. I mean, Watson, Heppel, Zaha, Argus, Goddard, Chapman, Stan, there's some real class there amongst their ball winners. But they've also got great depth in terms of their key positions. Fletcher, Carlisle, Hooker, Hurley, Danaher, who could be a superstar. You've got Pears as a backup. You've got the 2 ruckmen in Ryder and Bell Chambers, who didn't play on the weekend. And if you have a look at the core players, I mean, they're all quality as well. Hibberd, Hocking, Howlett, Myers, Hardingham and Bagley, and then 3 more that didn't play on the weekend. Winderlick, you could argue, is in that top group of 6, and also Dempster and Comma, so they've got some really good depth. I think there's no real weaknesses in that lineup, and if they stay fit, they're going to have a big say in what's going to happen in 2014.
Yeah, it's a really flexible lineup, and I think they've added a little bit of extra run, which was required with a couple of their youngsters. Ambrose took everybody's fancy, but those skinny legs of Gleeson, I think, are going to help.
But let's not ignore the big pickup, Chapman.
Yep.
I mean, Chapman
Star.
kicked 4 goals in his last game for Geelong in the final. And he was ready, he was primed, and his skills, it was just a reminder of how skillful this bloke is.
Let's move on to the Eagles, and I want to quote Alan Jeans. He used to say that football was a simple game. The ruckman tapped it to the rover, and the rover kicked it to the full forward, who kicks a goal, the ball comes back to the centre again. And you wouldn't believe it, that's exactly what happened with the West Coast Eagles. Take a look at Alan Jeans, and the way he described it is exactly what happened here at Subiaco. Natanui goes up. He taps it to the rover, who was Scott Selwood. Selwood kicked it to the full forward, and the full forward, Darling, who had a magnificent game, he came out, grabbed it and kicked a goal.
Well, you would have been excited, Jared. See Nick Nat tap it down.
It was a pretty
I
handy
didn't think
start
he
by
could
Nick.
possibly be ready to have such an impact on the game, given his preparation.
And he had short bursts in the rugby.
Yeah, but he looked sharp, didn't he? A couple of good marks in contested situations.
And
Happy with him?
I was
Big
very
smile on
pleased.
your face?
I think that the whole Eagles lineup looks quite superb. And what's interesting is the time in their forward 50 again, in the space of 1 week, is back to what we thought it was going to be last year, when most people had them as top 4 favourites. In 2012, they were at plus 11 minutes. That dropped away dramatically last year, and there are all sorts of reasons. But yesterday, against an undermanned side, you could say, they were back to plus 17.
Well, these are the reasons. They're called Hearn, Lacroix, Natanui, Rosa, Shuey and Wellingham. All had injury-disrupted seasons last year, and they're all back and fit.
So they're like new recruits, aren't they?
They are.
The Giants have landed again, as you said, and I'm not talking GWS. The kick-out pressure that they can produce with those tools, I think, is going to again be one of the great features. Here, they've already locked it into the forward pocket, but they look up and they're looking at Nat Nui, or they're looking at Dean Cox, etc. This allows Ellis to come over the top of Nat Nui. He smashes the ball back inside forward 50. A nice little tap on there. I think it was by Shuey. And a really good
Cripps
finish.
kicks the goal. But their big blokes work hard, and they're athletic, aren't they?
Well, that's only one of the parts. I mean, they can sit back and form a zone, which is great. But if you look at Darling and Kennedy in particular, they chase like small forwards. They chase and tackle like any of the top quality small forwards in the game. And that enables you to play all these tools.
It's a great unit, isn't it? When you consider they've got Scott Lysette also out at 203 centimetres, battling away with Callum Sinclair for that third position. They are really well placed, Mike. Yeah, and I think it really did show up the Western Bulldogs. They didn't have a bailout kick, as Ruzi said, on 360. They took a running side over and it didn't run.
That's true, but their best player wasn't playing either. Griffin not being there. I mean, it's a massive hole in that team. They're not ready to be able to cope with that.
No, it showed, though, in a lot of areas. The turnovers, they didn't handle the pressure. They couldn't win the contested ball. And their turnovers were pretty embarrassing.
Well, there's one other one I want to ask you about from that game, Jason. As a forward, I'm a Stuart Crameri fan. I love the way his work ethic and his hands.
Yep.
But he's got no confidence when
Absolutely.
And he's a key forward.
Perfect examples, aren't
they? He should have kicked this goal.
50 out directly in front. You've got to kick that.
And he's gone to a 1 or 2 almost into the sun to Goodsey.
Who's not a recognised forward anyway,
not.
so he's got to kick that. But I was even more critical of this one. Like, he's got the speed to break. Like, why not have another bounce? I don't know if he's gone for a short pass or a little chip to dribble it through. I'm not quite sure which he went for there. But there's no doubt if he was to sharpen up that side of his game, it goes to another level because he is a good player. But he's got to kick the goals.
There'll be a lot of sides lose over at Subiaco this year. But I think the Dogs would really want to come back and produce a spirited performance because I'm not sure their membership drive would have been enhanced after the weekend.
You didn't think they worked hard, did you?
No, I didn't think they worked hard enough. And
do you think the difference with Jason and I think they haven't got the leg speed that you believe they've got?
Well,
you thought they had leg speed and didn't use it.
Going over there, and I said it last week, I thought they picked a pretty good side. I think they should have played probably Will Minson forward a bit more often because it wasn't working, the running game, and they needed to have a change up with the bomb. But we've got a new segment, not a new segment, a new award on the couch. It's the Recruit of the Year. Now, over the summer period, 50-plus players crossed over. If round one was the only round, Mike, who would you have given the Recruit of the Year to?
Mumford would be in front with me.
OK, Jason?
Paul Chapman for mine. He's a star.
Chappie and Mummy, well, you're all pretty close. Here's the top 10, according to Colonel Sanders.
According to who?
According to Colonel Sanders, who's added a lot of herbs and spices to this. Mumford, Chapman, I think Polek was quite superb in his opening game. Big Boy McAvoy is going to be a star. He was excellent. Matt Thomas, for his performance, he was a upgraded rookie. Josh Hunt was good. I think you've got to keep your eye on Elliot Yeo. He is going to be one hell of a player, and he got off to a great start, as did he, sure. Bernie Vincent Eddie.
Sean Hampson?
Unlucky to miss, Mike.
Trent West?
11th.
But I know what it's like. Fitting more than you've got spots for.
You'd like to think that in coming weeks, Dal Santo, Dale Thomas, these sort of names will start pushing towards the top of that list.
You would like to think that. Who's going to win the Rising Star tomorrow, Mike? Joe Danaher or Luke Dunstan?
I'm going for Danaher, Jared.
You're going for Danaher?
I am.
And why are you going for Danaher?
Well, I loved the 2 big flies he took. He took 3 or 4 really good marks. I mean, that's a bit of Carey in there, and I hate to sort of compare a kid to Wayne Carey, but in that style, and a lot of Paul Vanderhaar in there.
Absolutely.
Eyes on the footy, takes off.
A lot of courage.
Just for you, Mike.
Look familiar.
Who are you going for, Jason?
The forgotten man for me, Jared. Yeah? Jonathan Patton, the man who's still eligible, missed most of last year with a knee injury. I thought he was outstanding in the round one.
That seems 3 months ago.
It does. It was last week.
Well, unfortunately, they've just put out the announcement. Luke Dunstan from St Kilda, Mike, is the Rising Star. Luke Shuey, he wrapped up the goal of the year with this magnificent kick out of the air to put them about 13 goals in front. Pretty handy goal, Mike.
Yeah, Jared, I'd like to see him do it another 6 or 7 times out of 10. He's not mine.
You don't have to do it 6 or 7 times. You only have to do it once.
Well, that's spectacular.
It was.
But my boy Paddy Dangerfield, I prefer his goal.
It was a handy goal, wasn't it?
Well, let's have a look at it.
In fact, I think it was enhanced because
we
had great vision of it as well.
Look at that.
I think the problem you've got, Jared, is the one that you think could be goal of the year, wasn't even nominated for goal of the week.
I was only asking a question, Jason. One final question before we go to the break. Is Dustin Fletcher the most underrated player in the game?
He probably has been underrated for 7 or 8 years.
I keep hearing all this criticism that he doesn't play on the big blokes. Well, he used to. And you know
did.
what else he did? He played on 2 or 3 other blokes as well.
Well, you're 49 and you played on him. Yeah, he played on all the big guns when he was a kid, didn't he? At 17.
He did. And maybe that's why Sheeds actually released him after a number of years and said, I just can't keep doing it to him. So he then enjoyed playing that third tall type role,
Comparing the contemporary fullbacks with Matty Scarlett.
He's a very different type, Dustin Fletcher, because he would sit off you and use his reach and his natural athleticism, whereas the others had more bustle and body and be in your face and be aggressive, whereas...
Scarlett was a playmaker back there, though, like Fletcher.
He was, but he could also get
I don't think Fletcher's
aggressive.
ever been given the credit for being a sweeper as well, for fixing up his man and fixing up his man.
I think that's fair comment.
And if you look at his record, you'll see there's, I think, only one All-Australian, and he may not even have a best and fairest. And I think a lot of that goes...
He's got one.
He's got one best and fairest. A lot of it goes back to the ridiculous habit he got into of tripping blokes. One a year he used to do, which cost him 2 or 3.
Tell you what else he's done, Mike? He's done his best to bring the talk back to the game, hasn't he? Yeah. He doesn't mind unloading a barrel now and then.
No, he does not.
We've got to wrap it up. Time for a break. Luke Hodge, the Hawthorn skipper, he's our special guest. He'll join us straight after this.
Hodge got smashed. That is hard. Brown's his target. Hodge cuts it off with ease. Hodge met hard and late. Second time Paparone's done that. But he's got one of the hardest heads in the comp.
Right on 2 counts there. Dwayne Paparone using Hodge as a crash test dummy, and Luke Hodge, one of the hardest heads in the comp. Welcome to you, Luke.
Thank you.
How'd you pull up?
Actually put up pretty well. Yeah, so it was a nice physical game down there, and look, the Lions boys said that they were going to come out and come pretty hard, and we expected it, and that's what we got.
Were you impressed with the Lions? Because from afar, we know the scoreboard said that you won by over 60 points, but they look pretty competitive.
I think a team that's coached by Lepper and got a bloke like Jonathan Brown in there, you're going to expect a physical contest, and so it's the first game of the year. They're jumping out of the skin to play, and look, it was a good physical contest early.
Those 2 contests that we just saw, Luke, legal in your view?
Yeah, 100%.
Both of them?
Yep. I think both of them were marking contest. I guess one of them was 50, it was a bit late, but I guess most footballers, if you've seen an opportunity to make someone earn a mark, you would, and the other one was just a contest. The first one? The first one, what actually hurt the most was me hitting, I think it was Green's leg on the way down, so it was a hit to the side, and I didn't find anything wrong with it.
What do you want about the Hawks' performance? I don't know if you had that sort of pressure in any of the lead-up games. I mean, you had a comfortable win in the NAB Challenge, and you touched up North Melbourne, you touched up Melbourne in a practice match last round, so you probably didn't quite have the practice against that sort of in-your-face pressure that they applied, and I thought it took a while to adapt to it.
Yeah, I guess it's always that next step. As soon as home and away games come, the standard and the intensity always picks up. I guess we're a little bit scratchy at certain stages, but I guess down in Tassie for some reason it's always close, half-time, 3/4 time, and then you stick to your guns, you keep working, and we seem to play some good football in the last quarter, and I think we kicked 6 or 8 goals late. So.
That's your home ground advantage, isn't it? I mean, everyone shares the MCG. How much of an advantage is it to play in Launceston?
We love playing down there. Obviously, it's different for everyone else who goes down there. The ground feels like a little bit bigger, but more space. Obviously, the wind as well at both ends. It does a bit different to other games, other grounds. So we enjoy going down there. We're comfortable. We've got a set routine that we play when we go down there, and obviously the crowd going down there, everything's brown and gold, which is awesome support. What
about the balance of your own role, defence, midfield? How do you want it to be, and what do you think it's going to be this year?
I'd say it'd be the same as past years. It's not just myself. There's Sammy, there's Sean, Birch at times that we're going to rotate throughout different positions. I think the strength from last year compared to 2012 was we had the younger guys, Bruce, Piopolo, Liam Shields, also rotating through the middle while playing forward. So I think the more versatility you have on your side, the harder it is for opposition teams to scout you.
We know there were some lessons learned from 2009 after your premiership year, and you probably wasted that following year. What did you take out of that personally? What did you learn from that you've been able introduce to say 2014 as the chance to win back-to-back flags?
I guess tough things. It's so different from then to now. Back then we did have a lot of injuries. We come back. We had blokes. I think there was 10 or 12 operations, so blokes couldn't come back after doing the work and have solid pre-seasons. I think we had 2 operations this year. We did set high standards as players on each other, saying that when you come back, you've got to be fit, you've got to be ready to go, because obviously there was an extended break as well.
But did you get ahead of yourself, though? Did you get ahead of yourself in 2009?
It's hard to say. Look, we didn't play the convincing football that we wanted to. Did we push ourselves as hard? At the time, you think you do. Looking back now, we're a lot fitter now than what we were back then. The skin fold's better, your times are better, I guess your intent you're training with, because we're senior and because we'd been through that. Our standards were a lot higher now than what we were back then. But at the time, we thought we were doing the same as what we did the previous year.
It's great to talk about premiership hangovers, but you nearly didn't get that opportunity. I want to take you back to the last minute of the preliminary final when Travis Farko picked up the ball. You were only a metre or so away from him. What were you thinking right now?
When he had it, not the best thoughts were going through my mind, but you think we'd had so many games against Geelong that had been won by like a kick, either with Jimmy Bartel kicking a point after the siren, Hawkins' goal. Luckily, one finally went our way, and it was a pretty important game. But
did the whole season flash before your eyes? Because quite clearly, you're in a position to lose it comfortably at three-quarter time. You'd fought back, and all of a sudden, this dream of a premiership again was nearly gone. Yeah,
it does. Well, that was to make it a draw. So look, it does. Being 20 points down, to work your way back, and then to sort of let up. If you watch the play going through there, we did make a lot of mistakes for the ball to get to that situation. So, but that's football. You try and limit the mistakes in pressure situations. And against Geelong, we'd made a lot of mistakes in those tight games previously.
The general rule of thumb is if you stay where you are, you slide backwards. Has Clarko, following on with that adage, tinkered with the game plan for this season?
I think there's always going to be little tinkers here and there. I think every team does it. If you listen to Ross Lyon, they want to score 2 or 3 goals extra. I think every team going into a pre-season tried to add that little bit, and whether it's more offensive, more defensive, depending on how they went the year before. So we've tinkered a few things here and there. One major change, you've got a reasonable footy director on board for the first time. That was one of the main things that I was going to say. How was he as footy director? No, he was good. He when he wanted something, he'd come down and talk to us. But apart from that, Jace was great. I think one thing that the boys respect Jace, I don't want to put him on the spot here, but after the 2012 grand final, normally in grand final wins, you have a lot of people come down and pat you on the back. There was one person who sat in the rooms with the boys for an hour and a half afterwards, and I know you're probably embarrassed about this, but he sat there speaking with the boys, chatting with the boys, and from when he came in, we were down in the dumps. From when he left, the boys are sort of a bit more upbeat, chatting around, and I think that's the reason why all the boys around the footy club and so many people respect the great man here.
Hodge,
and he's blushing a little bit.
Tommy Rockcliffe declared war on Sam Mitchell. How did you see it? And then I want to ask you about the specific incident in which Rockcliffe was suspended for 2 weeks down to 1. There's the clash there.
The clash there. I guess anything that's off the ball that far, the people are going to have a look at that. I think that's the way with so many cameras these days. But as far as their battle, that's great. As far as Sammy Mitchell is someone who, if someone comes up to him and gets in his face, it's actually good for us because we know that it's game on and he's going to mean business today. But I think as far as the hit, I think that's the issue. If it's that far off the ball, people are always going to look at it.
But you reckon that doesn't deserve 2 weeks, does it?
Well, if you look at it's hard to say, but if you look at the tribunal now, people do look for the ball that far off the ball. I think it's 60 metres away, and if there's a need for that, the tribunal obviously thought not. But if that's around the ball, no problems at all. You can hit him as hard as we want, and Sammy's probably a person who would sit there and take that.
You do that stuff, don't you?
Hit someone hard enough that they hit the deck off.
Well, I thought Mitch, was
You're
pretty
calling him a sniper, eh?
No, I'm talking about the contact.
And that's what Sammy Mitchell around a contest, you could hit him as hard as you want. You could hit anyone around a contest, and they're expecting it. If they're watching the ball 30, 40 metres off the play, doesn't matter who you are. If you get hit in the right spot, you're going to
So
get...
right decision.
I reckon if it's that far off, you should be penalised.
There's a new number 23 at Hawthorn. How good can Tim O'Brien be?
He's got a lot of ability and he's a ripping bloke. I think you just sort of seen when he took that mark and confidence in his first game, went back, first shot at goal, kicks our first goal and the boys get around him. He's athletic, he can take a good mark, he's a great kick of goal. Probably might need to bulk up a little bit more the more he plays, but and he's got that attitude that he just wants to get better, which is great to see.
Now, we did it first. We asked you to do some homework for us. Mike Sheehan has redrafted the Super Draft, of which you are a prominent member, the 2001 Super Draft, and we've got you to redraft it as well. There's the initial lot, Mike.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, Hodge stays at number 1, doesn't he?
Who's number 9?
Oh, who pushed him down to 3, Jared?
Well, go through it, Mike. It's on the screen for everybody.
I don't think there's any question that Ablett should sit atop that list. The Judd Hodge situation is tight, really tight, but I think we forget how good Juddy was in the first 6 or 7 years of his career.
I don't think anyone does. Juddy was an absolute freak. For someone to come in his first couple of years, winning Brownlow in his third year, for 7 or 8 years, he was an absolute freak and elite person in the competition.
When I look at the left-hand side, Luke Mullen obviously didn't have an impact. Ash Sampy is the one of great disappointment to me, because he already showed that he was going to be a real star, mark of the year, goal of the year, and yet he just didn't come to grips with AFL footy. OK, we're all waiting for yours now, Hodgie. You were asked to come in with your list.
Yeah, I left mine in the car. I got the memo a bit late.
Mike, that you wouldn't produce.
Jay said he was going to fill in for me.
No, I do want to ask you though. Nick Del Santo was in the same draft, wasn't he? Did you have a tough time throwing up Montagna and Del Santo?
Yeah, Montagna and Del Santo. Yeah, that was 10-11. He's had a bad weekend, Nick, hasn't he?
He did, didn't he?
Also, Brian Lake did mention, he said he was in that draft as well.
If he had stayed at his original club, mate, he was in.
He said he wanted to come across one of Norm Smith medal. He's been pumping that up ever since that day.
And he did win the best and fairest at the Bulldogs too.
He was a very good player and he still is.
What is it quite an amazing year though, when you consider Swan came in at, 58?
6 or something, yeah.
Luke, Sammy Mitchell was 36.
Yeah,
there was a
Stevie Johnson,
lot of good players up the draft. What about McAvoy? He's another one who could end up being one of the recruits of the year, and he had a great start for you.
It's for someone who just such a strong mark. I guess it's not only that, his leadership. His first couple of weeks at the club, he was obviously a bit quiet, just looking around, but he's not afraid to tell the blokes what he thinks. If he sees something he doesn't like, he'll speak up, which is great. Obviously, he was touted as a future captain at St Kilda, and we're very lucky to get someone across who's a good player, but also has that leadership style as well.
I reckon Hawthorn's picked up Recruit of the Year 5 out of the last 7 years.
You have been very selective. When I asked you, you took a gamble, though, on Dale Gartlett between seasons. Yep. He came across from Perth. No one doubts that he can play. Came across. I thought it was really smart that they put him at your house to sort of assimilate him into the AFL and to Victoria. But he's gone home to Perth. Can you update us as to what's going on there?
Yeah, he went home to get his licence.
Is that all?
Yeah.
He wasn't playing footy?
No, he wasn't playing footy. No. Look, when Dale come across, obviously it's a big change. AFL intensity, AFL expectations, it's a huge change from someone who would rock up and train when he wanted to and play when he wanted to. So the reason why he sort of went to the club and said that he needed time off was because that expectation, the consistency of training, the consistency of, I guess, rocking up on time every day is something that he was just finding tough. So that's where he went home to get his licence, but that's where he's just summing up at this stage on...
Do you think you'll play for Hawthorn this year?
It's a tough call because, as you said, it's not just your offensive side of things, it's your defensive side and it's everything else. You need to be consistent for a long time before you get a game. And we rate ourselves very high in the discipline side of things as far as you're on time, you're doing everything right. So, look, it's a big change for a bloke from where he's come from. He's made huge jumps, but it's still, he needs to make that decision that he wants to commit and follow through with it.
Well, the good news was that you killed the Kennett curse in the preliminary final, but the bad news is Chappie wasn't playing. He hasn't been beaten by the Hawks since 2008, and you've got him on Friday night. It's a huge game against the Bombers.
It is, and he looked quite nice. The other night, he always does seem to kick a few goals, so look, it's without a doubt, it's going to be a big game. Obviously, everyone was keen to watch Fletch last week break the record, but it's going to be a big sellout ground at Etihad this Friday.
Well, thanks for coming in. Good luck for the rest of the year, and let's hope you can do your homework for us next night.
Thanks, guys.
Luke Hodge, our special guest. He's an inspirational captain. We'll take a look at another couple who dragged their sides across the line straight after this.
Game for Nick Riewoldt, and he slid that one through very nicely. But here goes Riewoldt. Riewoldt marks. Riewoldt's got 3 as well.
They just had that extra potency in attack, and it's all around that man there who's been a champion of the game.
Well, he's had many wins, but just felt that one meant so much to him. Nick Riewoldt lifting when the Saints needed him to lift. It was a good effort, wasn't it?
Well, I think there's been 6 months of gloom surrounding St Kilda, and that has permeated through to the players, and they're wondering what sort of year they're going to have, and they've started with a win.
But you can see the way the emotion spilled out at the final side.
Yep.
That shows you the pressure they'd been under.
Yep.
All the talk about Melbourne going in his favourite and actually going to beat them, I think they probably took that personally.
He's lucky his opponent got injured, I reckon. McDonald, I thought, had his measure. He's got the tank to go with him.
Yeah.
I know that Nick Riewoldt chased him down and forced him under some pressure.
You're saying he's lucky McDonald got injured?
Well, I reckon he had him early, Jason, and I think the Demons had the ball, and this is where the Demons actually needed a long bomb. A bailout kick. Fitzpatrick was actually on the ground at that stage, but
game's not over early, Jared.
Understand
it's
that.
over 4 quarters.
But it would have been a lot tougher for Nick to drag him across the line had that young bloke got
But he did
not
do
injured.
it, and he kicked the goals he had to kick, didn't he?
Yeah, kicked very well. Looked comfortable kicking the goal, didn't he?
Yep.
You happy with the Demons, Mike? There seems to be this view that it was a pretty fair effort, a view that I share.
Well, no, I'm not with you on that. I saw Nathan Jones on 360, and I agreed with him. I thought it was disappointing. They kicked 6 goals against a team that was undermanned, and most people have been predicting.
Yeah, they kicked 6 goals, but what was it, 6-15? I mean,
they kicked 6 goals.
Yes, Mike, but they had 21 scoring shots. That's if you're a Melbourne side with McDonald injured, with Fitzpatrick going off the ground, with their forward line in the sheds.
I understand all that, but that
was a pretty good effort.
They're playing St Kilda with Hayes and Montagna and Stephen and 4 or 5 others. They needed to be better than that. I thought they started well, but they just didn't have anyone that they could aim at forward to kick a goal.
Too many talls out. That was the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to work out how they started favourite when you've got the fact that there's no Dawes, there's no Mitch Clark, there's no Hogan playing. So,
but Hogan hasn't played.
No, but he's a big, tall target. We saw him in the NAB challenge.
Yeah.
He's at least a bailout kick going forward.
Yeah. You happy with Jack Watts and the way he played?
I thought he played okay. He played okay.
So I got a positive out of your mind?
Yeah, no, there's several, Jared.
Okay.
I liked what I saw of Bernie Vince. He should kick better, given that he's such a good kick. There were things to get excited about, but not enough.
Well, he looks like he's going to be a great pickup for them, though, because as a general rule, he's a pretty good kick.
Correct.
Now, he kicked 1 goal 4. Could have been 4 goals 1. Hit the post twice. Makes a huge difference in the context of the game, doesn't it?
It does.
But there's what he is capable of. That's a quick handoff, and then he bombs away from 55. That's something they really don't have. They don't have a player that can do that.
But a big tick for Watts. I really liked the way he applied himself on.
And a big tick for the Saints. They were quite superb.
Yeah.
Saunders was really good.
Wasn't a great game, Jared.
Well,
When you say quite superb, it was a pretty scrappy game.
Well, I thought Saunders' performance wasn't
I saw
scrappy.
Essendon and North at the same place 24 hours earlier. They were a long, long, long way off that.
Oh, well, Mike, sometimes you've got to see beauty in some uglier things. But Joel Selwood on Thursday night, he was a thing of rare beauty. He was absolutely unbelievable. In a game that I thought was one of the more competitive games.
Yep.
Adelaide didn't lose any fans on that one as well.
Couldn't agree more. I thought they were very good, the Crows. And this is a terrific contest. I mean, Joel Selwood, gee, you like watching him play. Just the way he goes about it and the leadership that he shows on field. And in such an important game, game number 250 for Jimmy Bartell. How good to see him kick 4 goals. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And one thing when you're watching games, a bit like when you're looking for matchups, you sit there and you go, who's on him? How does he get so clear? And he did this twice.
Yeah.
He did this twice. He kicked 3 goals the second term. And you can see him in the top of the screen there, all on his own. Now, the ball takes an eternity to get down there. If they had kicked it then, it's the same sort of goal. But in the end, he has to do a little bit of work. But you could still see how long he was down there for on his own. And people don't understand how this unfolds.
There's a dribble goal. Did you like that dribble goal?
That was okay. He was on the left foot and he had to go around the corner.
Can they punt on that because they're so good and they back each other's skills?
I'll show you exactly how he punted on it because we've got the behind the goal screen. Now, you'll see Brody Smith's his opponent, right? So the Crows win the ball and the Crows are going forward. So Smith and the rest of the Crows defenders come forward trying to create options. And look at Jimmy just lurking out the back.
So you're backing Jimmy for not picking him up?
No, well, I'm just saying, like Mike said, he'll back his teammates to win it. And as soon as he sees a contested ball here and he thinks, hang on, we're out, look who's off.
Yeah.
Look who's off heading forward. And the Crows, no one's picked him up. Whereas when Brody Smith came forward, one of Jimmy's teammates covered for him and actually went to him. No one went to Jimmy Bartell. So look, when you're part of a great team, you can take those sort of risks. And they paid off handsomely for him on the night.
You have been, Crook, you've been in bed, and it's given you a chance to put a microscope over some of the issues, including mental lapses.
I just want to explain, when we talk about mental lapses, and this isn't bagging the player for making a mistake, But if you, for a moment, lose your focus in this game, it has a flow-on effect. And it's costly to your teammates and can be costly on the scoreboard. We've just got 3 examples here, which are perfect mental lapses that only just happen. Caddy comes down to mind Patrick Dangerfield. He runs to the outside of him, takes his eye off him for a minute, and he's gone. Comes inside, gets the handball, kicks the goal. Tried to do the right thing and cover Dangerfield, but then got caught napping. Show you another one. Sam Kerridge trying to get back and cover. Look, he's probably tired. He gets back. But he overcommits and he goes underneath the ball. He had to run round the defensive side of Johnson and hold him up.
Yep.
So what he does by going underneath the footy is allow him to play on, and then he gets within goal-kicking range. And the one final one I've got was in the Western Bulldogs and the West Coast game. Now, just have a look. Your man just kicked the ball. Where are you? You're watching where the ball's gone, not the man that just kicked it, the bloke that you were marking. And now all the other Bulldogs players have to come and pick him up, which frees up more players downfield. It's that flow-on effect. It's a tough game, AFL. And if you have a split-second lapse in focus, it can be very costly.
OK, let me take you to the Hawthorn-Brisbane game and a man we all admire, Jonathan Brown. Why wasn't his miss from 20 metres a mental lapse?
Well, for me, that's a skill execution.
Yeah, but we know he can execute.
We see these every week.
Not
We
from
see
him,
these
not
every
from him.
week.
He's the money man when he's kicking for goal.
Everyone's fallible.
Yeah.
And he just showed that.
So he wasn't slack.
But that's different. That's different. The others weren't skill executions. They were up here. They were focused. They were concentration. And just by not thinking right at the right time, cost the team dearly and cost your teammates.
You happy with that, Mike? Happy with that
Sort of.
explanation?
Sort of.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's his, he would know. He's been
That's
kicking
right,
the goal a bit more
1,500
than I
goals.
have, yeah.
We're going to take a break, but don't go away, Bulldog supporters. Mike's got a little bit for you on the other side of this, and we'll have a look at a little bit of Open Mic Part 2 with Ricky Nixon.
Gary Ablett Senior, you had a major influence in his life for an extended period.
We were on a boat on our own with no one else around, and he said the words to the effect of, Rick, I don't want to do what everyone else wants me to do, I just want to be Gary Ablett. And that had a profound effect on me, that here we are wanting, just because Gary's one of the greatest players of all time, and he would say the greatest, I say second greatest, just because we want him to be a footy show host or and wrote a newspaper column, he doesn't want to be that. And I went, good on you, mate.
Ricky Nixon, Open Mic Part 2, coming up straight after On the Couch. Footy World was talking about Part 1, Mike. Did you save the best for last?
That's good. I'm happy with the episode 2. This is more in the purest sense about the blokes on the field, rather than the sort of the drama that Ricky's had off the field.
You've been in good form, Mike. Every chance for back-to-back extras. Sexiest man on
After round
Foxtel. Right, you're mad as hell right now.
Well, look,
Put
stay
your
with
mad
me,
as hell
boys.
on.
I want to show you some vision from last year. Now, we showed this to... this is Paul Puopolo and his willingness to work. This is a bloke who's in a premiership team, right? And every week he does it. Now, watch this. He just sprints and sprints and sprints till he dispossesses someone, and he's not done with yet, right?
It's pretty rare, isn't it? That's a great
Now, I want to say, the game that you covered at the weekend in Perth, and there were 2 examples where the Bulldogs blokes should watch Puopolo and see how hard you've got to work when you don't have the footy.
Who's the first one?
Now, that's
Adam Kearney.
Now, he's probably not going to catch this bloke, but he's certainly not going to catch him running like that, is he? And there's another one where Mitch Wallace chases Eric McKenzie. McKenzie's a backman, a tall backman. He's able to have 3 bounces running down the wing, and Mitch is not making 1 inch on him.
Yeah. Neither
of them are good enough, though, are they?
All I would say, look, at face value, they don't look great chasers. But it's 35 degrees. We don't know whether they had 2, 3, 4, 5 efforts prior to that. They're fatigued, maybe needing a spell. They were the ones that were Johnny on the spot that had to chase. They didn't have the leg. I'm just saying, if
Puopolo ran 10k to catch his bloke.
He might have been fresh as a daisy at the time.
Let me make a case for them. It was hot. The scoreboard said it was a hopeless case. But I tell you what, Puopolo wouldn't have looked at the scoreboard because he was desperate to get into that grand final side. We've got an amazing round 2. Some people say it's round 1. And let's hope the figures, the stats for the attendances are better, because it was 175 down in round 1 on previous round 1. It kicks off on Thursday night, Mike. These are all cutthroat games.
They are. It should have been round 1, this one.
Richmond Carlton.
Yep.
You'd hate... where's the media van going to be after that?
That could be... it's equally important for both of them, isn't it?
Who do you think will win that one, Jason?
The way my tips went in round 1, I'm the worst person who asked.
How many did you get out of 4?
Out of 9, I think I got 3.
Did you? Well, no.
I couldn't have deliberately picked that badly. I might stick my neck out and go for Richmond, but I think the fallouts...
That's not sticking your neck out. They're favourites.
Fallouts big for both, but for Carlton, they really worry me now if they lose again.
I reckon Essendon can go back-to-back and knock off Hawthorn. Hawthorn have got 6 or 7 premiership players out. They'll be good things on Friday night.
Good things?
Yep.
The Bombers against the Premiers?
I think they will be.
Wow.
Have a look at the outs for Hawthorn.
OK, we'll see what your judgment's like.
Port Adelaide versus Adelaide at the debut.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be very exciting to be there, wouldn't it?
Adelaide Oval, first game
Crows were
for
good,
years.
Crows were good, but I was so impressed with Port first up.
What about if Collingwood... the loser of Collingwood and Sydney
Oh, worse for Collingwood, I think, than Sydney. Sydney,
not good
look,
for the Swans.
No, not good
with
for
all that
Sydney,
scuttlebutt about, you know, the
understand that, and they can just say, look, they've often had slow build-ups to the season, but for Collingwood, after getting smashed first up by Freo over here, they need something.
Who wins, Jeddah?
I think the Swans will win. What about St Kilda GWS?
Yeah. Pardon?
I think it's a good game.
So do I.
games, isn't
I
it?
think it's line ball.
And the Swans are, in my view, favourites going in. But what do you think about them signing up John Longmire, Mike? Bit of camouflage there, or just...
no camouflage. But I
okay.
just, you know, this is the old saying. I just cannot understand why you'd lock in a bloke 4 years out.
Mate, don't say line ball. We were all asked to say who would win. You've got to ask St Kilda and GWS.
OK, I'm going for GWS.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
GWS, they could end up winning 3 because they play Melbourne in
Week after,
round
that's
3.
right.
Which is going to be a pretty fair start. Do you think they then should aim at 6 to 8 wins instead of a couple, Mike? I'll give you some time to think about that.
What, next week you want me to answer?
Yes, that'd be great, answering after the event. Looking forward to opening Open Mic Part 2 with Ricky Nixon. Congratulations again, Astra winner. And Jason, thanks for getting out of bed. We'll speak to you next week.